Okay, it looks like we are live. My name is Premee Mohamed. I'm a scientist and speculative fiction author. I've got about 30-ish short stories out in the world, and my debut novel, Beneath the Rising, came out this March from Rebellion Publishing. And today I'm going to be doing a reading from a short story that was published by Apparition Lit in January this year, which is called The Redoubtables. And I've gotten some questions already about the title, which I hope I will read enough of the story for that to become clear. Um, this is, just to clarify things, narrated by a young journalist who is investigating what appears to have been an inexplicable disaster. At first, it seems there's been a mistake. Far below us, the satiny, placid water is incapable of hiding a dropped quarter, let alone a disaster. I lean over and touch the pilot's jacket, but this is clearly the precise spot where people ask if he's lost. He speaks before I do. You'll see it in a second. It's so quiet, I hear it twice, once in my headset and once in the world. My stomach lurches as he guides the Eclipse straight up like the first climb of a roller coaster. The engine remains eerily silent, just a hum under our feet. You can't use helicopters out here, I was told again and again, and I still tried to book one, arguing that it was a tenth the cost. Why not? You'll see. As we ascend, they come into view through the shallow, clear ocean, littering the sand like so many crucifixes. 3, 4, 5, and then I tear my eyes from the dead helicopters, and I see it. Now there is sound. My fast breath in the headset. It's like life, isn't it? I want to say to the pilot whose name I have never learned. I want to speak to someone. I'm half delirious, just clenched in my lap for lack of anything to grab in this edgeless vehicle. It's like life. We had to get higher. We were too close to see the truth. Still rising, the edge of the thing reveals itself. No chaotic meteor strike with lacy edges of ejecta, but a smooth dinner plate of a crater, whitely bereft of life, and in the center, a darkness so profound that it seems astronomical rather than nautical, a black hole from which no light can escape, nor the grains of sand or stars. Time is lost as we hang motionless over the impossibility as I try, cameraless, phoneless, to record this in my mind. When it returns, we're nearly back at the dock. My face is crusted with tears I don't remember shedding. The pilot helps me down and lets me cling to his arm as my legs shake uncontrollably. Let's just get you on this, he says, and steers me to a bench with the same bored competence of muscle memory with which he flew the hover. I flop onto the hot wood and, at his suggestion, put my head between my knees. Through the dock's gappy planks gleams a much more ordinary ocean. Barnacles, darting fish, floating tufts of wrack. Life, which has not returned to the failsafe zone and never will. The pilot tells me this will pass in a couple of minutes and I'll be able to move again. But I'll probably want some sugar. There's a vending machine back at the desk where I had to sign over my phone. Seeing this a lot, huh? I managed through my chattering teeth. Oh, sure, he says. Every time. No exceptions so far. No one saw it happen. Scratch that. No witnesses were left. So you end up having to picture it based on the bone dry descriptions in what we'll all agree to just call the Pierce papers to avoid any messy litigation and which will keep me out of trouble with my editor. Here's what you picture. Something copyrighted. That's no moon. Or Bondian, a rocket, a self-guided bomb, a gun, a sword, a spear. We have so many ways to end life, and they all end up looking sort of the same. So that's what we think of, a pointy end. Then light. Light upon light upon light, like those early, terrified précis of nuclear tests. Brighter, they said, than 1,000 suns. but only for a second, and then erasure. Of, most importantly, 11 people, and of island, beach, buildings, air, algae, seabirds, fish, and a tremendous swath of the Earth's crust. But also, if we correctly understand the documentation, and no one's sure that we do or even can, other things. The space between particles, 100 types of force and spin, and an unmeasured and immeasurable amount of actual time destroyed, lost forever, just taken right out of the universe's accounting books. After that, a second explosion, as if the weapon, upon its first and only discharge, achieved sentience and sapience, realized what it had done, and flung itself from the parapet in instant repentance. But it didn't, of course. As with so many other historical disasters, someone had to give an order, and someone had to press a button. And I am going to go talk to someone who knows about this thing for which we have no words. Flights misalign, then ferries stand me up, and when I finally reach Alexander Wells's house, I have rescheduled 4 times and I'm a full 2 days late. The trudge up the white gravel walkway to his front door feels like the last minutes of some awful boot camp meant to kill new Marines. His house is high and narrow, and seems to my sleep-damaged retinas a little too high contrast, like Disneyland. Bricks too red, grass too green. Guarding the door are painfully yellow concrete planters filled with geraniums and petunias. The security camera on its slender gantry weaves around patiently as it tracks my face. Several minutes pass. A fat orange and black bee investigates my boot, still frosted with salt, and finds it unsatisfactory, launching itself back into the air with a little ugh. I wonder whether I'm hallucinating from sleep deprivation, and hope Wells will let me record this interview. I suspect he will. What can they do to me? He said on the phone last night. What do you think they will do? Nothing, I think. Nothing has happened to the others. Why should he be an exception? 11 people, 11 scientists killed in an instant, and no one aware of it till the Pierce papers were released. Then, after the investigation, the appeal, the countersuit, the counter-appeal, a number of civil suits, and 19 months in The Hague, 6 of those people have been declared officially deceased. The other 5 are still missing. No criminal guilt has ever been determined. No jail time has been served. The papers have no commentary on that, on culpability, or perhaps I mean to say evil. They just say, once upon a time, a research facility was built, as far in the middle of nowhere as could be. A little cluster of silver and white buildings connected with pedways on an unnamed island. It belonged to a coalition of governments, was organized and staffed under a covert pact, and funded via means more Byzantine than those that funnel cash to cartels, mobs, dictators, and cults. You think, why did no one know about it? But, of course, the answer is, people don't know about a lot of things, do they? Alexander Wells opens the door and takes my laptop bag and travel mug as I fumble my jacket off. Miss Bissett, so good to meet you at last. I hope the last leg of your travel was kinder than your previous ones. It was tolerable, thanks, I tell him. My first impression is that he doesn't look 85. My second is that he somehow resembles the house, the way some people begin to look like their pets. Tall and thin, bright blue eyes, and a face so tanned that it tends towards sunburn near the scalp and ears. White hair, not gray, but really white, like a silk scarf. His voice is rough, his accent leads. No one, not a bloody one, could understand a word out of me when I first moved stateside. Or into translucency after, he says, 5 decades on our bland voweled coast. As we chat about his present circumstances, yes, never married, the house is old, the cat is new. His neighbor found her cowering under a dumpster and she's still not learned any manners. I find myself glancing around for clues, pretending I'm Sherlock Holmes. Filled bookshelves. What titles do they hold? Family on the wall? Couple of amateurish watercolors? His, or purchased, or gifts from the same artist? This is how you know evil is banal, the history books tell us. This is how you know. There were baby photos on the walls of the sweet little cottages in Auschwitz, and embroidered curtains. There were operas, ballet performances, a school for the children of the Nazis. There were gardens and playgrounds. It all looks very ordinary when you come across it afterwards. Wells is, or was, did you ever leave it behind? A scientist, as well as an engineer, doctorate in marine hydrogeology, work on designing various labs and containment structures, advisor to a number of generations of politicians here and overseas. His work on high-profile projects was always low-profile, though, he told me. Not the kind of meetings you'd see photographed. In the kitchen, he offers me tea from a big red pot. Sugar and oat milk appear with rapid ease. His hands are big, bony, the nails clipped to a business-like length. I wrap both my own hands around my mug and will them to stop shaking. The house is cold and bright, several windows open, and the spring cross breeze coming through to ruffle my hair. The unnamed cat is a small wild tabby and sulks when she cannot kill my boot, leaving 2 vampiric pinpricks in the gray leather. Thanks for agreeing to speak with me, I tell him. Thanks for settling for me, he replies dryly. I know, you have to acknowledge it. Wells didn't push the button, and he didn't give the orders either, if the leaked dossier is correct. He was never called to court, never testified. All the same, he was supposedly at the heart of the research consortium, or he was its heart, the force that moved the blood. I flatter myself to think that he's agreed to this interview because I impressed him by managing to find him and say so. He chuckles. Listen, I read those papers too. First thing I thought, someone is gonna come knocking now, even with a name as common as mine. I thought about changing it, but then I thought, well, let them come. Let them ask. I won't seek it out, but I'll talk. You're not afraid of the consequences, obviously. No, jail's not gonna happen. No job to lose. You think maybe the families are gonna read your piece, come burn my house down when I sleep? Maybe. I've thought that too. This island isn't so hard to get to, not like that one. But you weren't directly responsible? This metaphorical button, they say, had to be pushed, like the nuclear war buttons. They think Newton pushed it, Edie pushed it, Lee pushed it, all the big names that were on TV. None of them did. I didn't either. They would still hate you, I persist. Because you let it happen. You didn't stop it. You're close enough. People settle, he says again. If it's all true, it's not merely a disaster, not merely the justification for a million more conspiracy theories that will ruin countless lives. It also means hundreds or even thousands of people worked for decades to hide both the creation of this facility and of the failsafe that had been constructed next to it. It means hundreds or even thousands of people knew that research was being performed out there in the middle of nowhere, research of such hazard or import that to prevent its dissemination in any way, a superpower, a superweapon of quite literally, physically impossible power would obliterate the entire island and itself. How can we live in a world where such a thing could be hidden by so many for so long? Is that about right? I asked Wells. Have I got that right? You knew about all of that from the beginning. You're oversimplifying it. But yes. He pauses and pushes away his empty mug. The first thing you think is, aha, the old man said it. But I didn't make the decisions. You informed the people who made the decisions. Yes, that was my job. I was an advisor. we're getting dangerously close to, I was just following orders here, Mr. Wells. What's wrong with that? We both pause for a minute. He doesn't want to interview me, and I don't want to be interviewed, and neither of us wanted to hear such a puerile question. Outside, birds sing with startling nearness. I crane my head to look over his shoulder, spotting the coffee table-sized feeder he's built on a pole in the garden. Some small round item is trying to sing and eat at the same time with middling success. Wells stares at me while I refuse to stare at him. Yellow warbler, he says. I was following orders. We all were. Now, let me ask you, since I know the internet people got 100 theories of their own, what do you think they were studying out there in Mispacet, those 11 people? I'm ready for this one. Part of me knew he'd ask it. Before I left, in fact, my editor said, do you think he'll ask you? We didn't put any money on it. Now I feel both despair and triumph at being right. Bioweapons, I say. Smallpox or anthrax or something else at level 4. Or something worse. New. Something they were making. There are level 4 containment facilities all over the world, he says. All the protocols are already in place. There hasn't been an incident involving a released infectious agent in 55 years. Try again. Super weapon, like the failsafe, which already existed. Why would they be researching that? To make a better one? It comes out weekly. For a moment, I'm back in grade 6 again. I didn't volunteer. The teacher called on me, and the other kids are snickering. I think, and I hope he too is thinking, there could not possibly be a better weapon than the one they used if what you want to do is not just kill, but obliterate. In what conflict, in what war, could you use such a thing? In what war could you want to destroy the quarks of the enemy soldiers and the zone of conflict for the rest of eternity? Remember, don't forget, that lifeless crater in which nothing living will ever return, which is only bathed with salt water that carries helpless floating things into it that die at once and are carried out. Not radiation. Something else. Impossibilities. I don't know, I finally say. What was it? That I won't tell you, he says. But you do know. Yes. We had to know in order to do what was done. And for the first time, I look into his eyes and see the real face of evil, the pale, interested eyes of evil. In a minute, he's going to tell me it was worth it. He'll insist that I cannot say it wasn't, because I don't know what it was. We are on two sides of a yawning chasm here. He knows there is nothing I would accept as worth purchasing in lives, and he thinks there is sometimes, and this was one. Anyway, please read the rest of the story at Apparition Lit. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Premeesaurus. And I will be hopping into the Discord in case people have questions afterwards. And please buy my book, Beneath the Rising, which came out this March. And thank you for whoever attended. I actually can't see on the Zoom thing, so it's possible that I was just talking to myself for 18 minutes, but thank you if you did.